Christ is risen.
Truly he is risen.
But did you mean it? Truly he is risen. That's what it's all about. There really isn't anything else. That's why we're here. It sums it up. Truly he is risen. So did you mean it? You know, the New Testament is a very weird book. At the heart of it is this person of Jesus Christ. And what the authors of these Gospels and the epistles that followed and the Acts of the Apostles and so forth, what they are asking their reader to accept and to believe is not simply that there was a really great guy with some really wonderful teachings who was really full of integrity and character and should be lifted up as a role model. And they're not trying to say, look, we have our own version of the wonderful stories of the ancients, Adonis and Apollo and Dionysius and all the other ancient gods who may or may not have made amazing journeys through the underworld and come back to life again. No, they are asking the reader to believe that pretty much a guy who was real was killed, painfully and undoubtedly killed, and that 3 days later he was alive again. That's at the heart of Christianity, that Christ is risen. And not only does it say, we want you to believe this, but it gives you all the reasons why you shouldn't. It puts right in your face all the reasons why a normal person would say, are you nuts? Are you kidding me? You want me to believe what? Why can't you just believe what you believe and I believe what I believe and we'll all just agree to disagree here and get along and we'll all be happy. And we'll all go to our own little separate clubs on whatever day of the week we go to them and we'll sing and we'll praise and we'll feel good about ourselves. Why are you asking me to say yes or no to something like this? Either he rose from the dead or he didn't rise from the dead. And if he rose from the dead, then that means something. And so it lays it all out there. Jesus appears. And then one of them's not there. So what does Thomas say? The one who is not there. There's no way. Unless I see it with my own eyes, unless I touch him with my own hands, unless I feel the places where he was killed by the wounds by which he was executed, I'm not going to believe. And so Jesus appears to him and says, go ahead. And even later, in the Gospel of Matthew, it says they went to the mountain where Jesus had directed them to go in Galilee, and there he appeared among them, and they believed, but some doubted. Even after all of this, there was still hesitation, there was still doubt. The irony is that for those who saw, it was hard to believe. And that same book is asking us who did not see to believe. Asking us who didn't get that chance to touch, who didn't get that chance to sit and eat and talk with the risen Christ, to nonetheless believe that it actually happened. And every one of those people that said, yes, I saw that, were willing to die rather than recant. Now, there's a lot of people who will die for what they believe in. There's even a lot more people who will kill for what they believe in, sadly. But that's just a question of, well, I really believe in this and I don't want to give up my belief, so I would rather die for it. And that's, I guess, admirable in its own way, if your ideas are at least admirable and noble. But these people, these apostles, were being asked not some principle, not some theology, not some philosophical or political idea to die for that. They were being told, you have to say he didn't rise from the dead. You have to say that you did not see what you say you saw. And every one of those people was willing to say, no, I saw what I saw, I touched what I touched, I know what I know, and this is what I know, Christ is risen. And they were willing to die for that. Now, how many of you would die for something that you knew you were lying about? How many of you would really want to do that? You know, watch all your good cop shows, right? There's always one person who they can get to spill the beans. They would separate them and put them in different rooms and interrogate them and play good cop, bad cop. And eventually somebody breaks because they find a way of leveraging. This didn't happen amongst these people. They all, only John the theologian did not die a martyr's death among them. And many, many more who were beyond the 12 also died. People like Stephen, the deacon. But, you know, all the evidence was there that this was going to happen in the first place. Jesus told them, how many times in the Gospels when you read that? We're going to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be betrayed into the hands of lawless men, and they will kill him, and on the third day he will rise again. And they say, yeah, Jesus. That's wonderfully deep. I don't know what they thought. They didn't believe him. And even when people said, yeah, he rose from the dead, they still weren't sure. And even when they saw him, they still weren't 100% sure because they couldn't grasp until it had time to sink in. This is for real. This is for real. And that's what a lot of this is about in the end. It's not that the evidence isn't there. It's not that it doesn't make sense, even though it is impossible. Even though what they're asking you to believe is something that has never ever happened before, and in essence, will never ever happen again. Somebody of their own accord rising from the dead, and not as a zombie. At the heart of this is the state of our spirit. Thomas says, unless I see it, unless I touch him, I will not believe. Is he really just being a rational skeptic, following through on the requirements of evidentiary support before he assents to the belief? Do you think that's really what's going through the heart of Thomas when he says those things? Is he being the one wise person who says, no, I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon, I'm going to examine all the evidence, and then I'll make a rational and informed decision? No. Thomas knew, like all the other 12, that this was what Jesus had promised. And he didn't want to believe. I bet he was angry. I bet he was angry because he wasn't there the first time. He was probably ashamed of himself, because where was he? Where were they the first time? They were in a room that was locked because they were afraid of the authorities. Thomas didn't make it probably because he was so afraid of the authorities, he didn't even come out of hiding. So he had shame that he had missed the first appearance of the resurrected Christ to his disciples. And so now he used that card of skepticism to hide that. Now he used it to show, no, He wasn't fooling anyone, and he certainly wasn't fooling Christ. Because Christ came right to him and said, here you go. Gave it right back to him. Touched me in the side. touch my wounds. See that it is me. And of course, with that, Thomas breaks down any pretense of being a scientist. My Lord and my God, he cries. And even then Jesus kind of scolds him, because you see, now you believe. Because it wasn't about that. It was about something else. And very, very often, not all the time, but many times, and maybe even most of the time, somebody says Christ is risen, and the person inside of them, maybe they say truly he is risen because they're Orthodox, maybe they don't even know what to say because they've never been to a crazy church where people shout at each other like we do. Inside them is that struggle. What are you saying to me? What does that mean to me? What are you asking me to agree to here? And what does it change? What will my life be like if I really believe that? What will I have to do differently if Jesus Christ really did rise from the dead? And it's all within a split second. It's that twisting in the gut and the heart and the throat and all the way to the mind. Every one of us has to go through that St. Thomas experience at some point in our lives. We have to face ourselves and our own unbelief and our own shame, our own distrust that something so good and so holy could possibly happen in this world. Something so good and so kind and so merciful and so generous, such as Jesus dying for us and rising from the dead, could happen for my sake. I have to come to terms with that. Can I accept that? Can I accept that generosity? Can I accept how bad that makes me feel to know how unworthy I am of such love? Can I get over that hump? Can I fall to my knees? Can I cry out, my Lord and my God? Truly you are risen. Or will I keep fighting and pretending and excusing? That's our challenge, possible challenge. So I will say to you, not as a question, but nonetheless it is something you must answer for yourself. Christ is risen.
Truly he is risen.
Christos anviat. Christos anesti.
Christos anesti.
Christos voskrese.
Christos voskrese.